the only moment where I, in my head, thought, this is it. It's happening right here, was when that ball was in the air. I thought he hit it well enough to get it off the wall. And I don't know what I was saying while the ball was in the air, but inside my head, I'm thinking, you better figure out something fast, buddy, because it's going to be over in about a second. So
back on Closer Look with Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media. Can you smell it? Baseball is in the air.
It's in the air.
It's in the air, brother.
It started last night on Netflix of all places.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
it's like hockey on Prime, baseball on Netflix.
I didn't even know that was going on. Like baseball, as far as I remember, obviously a huge fan. Opening day was like a religious day. Like every game was on the same day. So now the Yankees open last night on Netflix. Some teams open tonight, including my Tigers.
Yes.
And then the Jays open Friday night.
Yeah.
So I didn't look at the full schedule, but it's kind of like an opening week vibe.
Yeah.
But it's a great March is the best. We talked about this already. And opening day is for me the official signal of the summer to come. It's like it's happy opening day. Let's go. Let's watch some baseball. And before you know it, that snow will melt and we'll be loving it.
Let's hope. How are your Tigers looking?
They look pretty good. You know, it's a clean slate. They always look good, right? They always look good. But they do
Everybody's got the same record.
But they do look good. I feel good, knock on wood. But it's all the injuries. And thank God for sports, Scott, because I say it all the time. There's so much negativity. Yeah. There's so much negative things going on in the world. So much worry, so much concern. And I don't know, sports for so many people is that thing that kind of can take you away for a little while.
It's a nice bit of escape.
Hopefully there won't be too many gambling ads, and as we talked about the other night, there won't be too many what the odds are of this guy getting a hit. But I'll tell you, the odds of Pages making that catch in Game 7 of the World Series, knocking over Kiki Hernandez, I would have loved to see that. To me was the best catch of the year. And Easily. It happened. If that catch was happened in May, it would have been the catcher. Yes. He pushes his teammate over.
Get out of the way.
Jumps, makes an unbelievable catch. But he makes that catch in the bottom of the ninth in Game 7 of the World Series like a movie.
Yeah.
Robs Ernie Clement of a hit. And that was the difference between the Jays not winning the World Series and winning the World Series. Yeah. We're going to talk about that tonight and a whole lot more.
Yes, with the one and only Dan Shulman. With the entire country watching, the Toronto Blue Jays were just 2 outs away last fall from capturing their third World Series. Calling it a magical October run doesn't quite do it justice. Every pitch had people from coast to coast on the edge of their seats. Sadly, it didn't go the Jays' way thanks to an unbelievable catch by a Dodgers outfielder. But now it's a new season, a clean slate, and the Jays are hoping to get back to the World Series again. Joining us tonight for a pre-opening day chat is a very special guest, Dan Shulman, the voice of the Blue Jays on Sportsnet. Dan, we're thrilled you're here. Thanks for this. Welcome to Closer Look.
Thank you. Good to be with you guys.
All right, Dan, lots of Blue Jays questions for you tonight, but I want to be honest, the real reason we've asked you to come on this show tonight is just to read the phone book for our listeners. Are you okay with that? I mean, your voice is one of a kind.
I'm okay with that. I think that might get a little monotonous pretty quickly, but no, I appreciate that. That's funny.
In fact, your career started in radio, I think, at CKBB in Barrie.
Correct. Yeah. 1990. I was about 6-8 months out of school from Western and got a job at CKBB Barrie, CKCB Collingwood, and did a little bit of everything, whatever they wanted me to do. I covered elections, covered the courts. I got coffee for people, eventually got into a little bit of newscasting and kind of worked my way up the ladder there. But news, traffic, weather, sports, the pet patrol, which was the pet lost and found, like whatever they needed, I was happy to do.
That's what I love about your story. It's kind of like all of ours. You know, we start at nothing. We start from the beginning. We work our way up, and then we make our way. Do you still pinch yourself sometimes at where you are today from where you were back then?
All the time. Yeah. All the time. I mean, I was a math major. I'm not even supposed to be doing this. And even when I tried to do this, my goal, I started in Barrie and loved it there and learned a ton, but I'm a Toronto guy and just kind of wanted to see if I could get back to Toronto to live in the city that I was born and raised in. Never really thought about play-by-play, never thought about television, never thought about ESPN or doing anything in the United States or or anything like that. So yeah, I probably pitch myself more than most people do.
You know, in hindsight, we screwed this up. If we knew Dan was coming, we should have had a contest where we asked readers just give us their names, and you could have spent a couple minutes just saying hello to everybody. They would have loved that. They would have loved that.
All right, let's get to the baseball questions. Dan, like we said off the top, an unbelievable run last year, as it is with baseball. So much had to go so right for the Jays to get to where they did. During the season, when did it click for you that this team was something special?
I would say it was right around the time they played the Yankees, that 4-game series over Canada Day. People may forget the Blue Jays weren't playing great the first 2 months. I believe they were 26-28 at one point. Bo Bichette hit a home run to win a game in Texas. It had been a bad road trip. They'd gotten swept in Tampa Bay, could barely score runs in Texas. They came home, played the A's, started scoring a lot of runs. And I remember, whether it was Buck Martinez or Joe Siddall, series after series, like I think they played St. Louis and then Cleveland, Minnesota. I may have the order not quite right, but we kept looking at each other and saying, they're pretty good. Like, is this real? Is this sustainable? And then when the Yankees came to town at the end of June, the Yankees were 3 games up on the Blue Jays, 4-game series, including Canada Day, which, as you guys know, is always festive. And the Blue Jays swept them. George Springer hit a huge grand slam on Canada Day, which I think was the second day of the 4-game series. The Blue Jays swept it, took over the lead in the East, and then until a little bit of a swoon in September, were basically the best team in baseball for about 2.5 months. So I would say it was around the time of that Canada Day series.
That's great. Did you know, was there a time when you spoke to a player or someone on the team, a coach, the manager maybe, where they felt it too?
Oh, yeah, they felt it a lot. They might have felt it even earlier. Like it was going to click. It just hadn't started yet. They had two new hitting coaches, in fact, including the lead hitting coach, David Popkins. And maybe it took a little bit of time for the different messaging or different philosophy to really sink in. And once it sunk in, over that 2.5-month stretch, they were the best offensive team in baseball, and I think finished 4th in the majors in runs scored over the entirety of the season last year. So I think it just took a little bit of time for things to click. And it's not like everything went perfectly. They had injuries. They had to call on a lot of guys from the minors. But then, you started to see week after week, so this is Nathan Lucas, and this is Ernie Clement, and look at the year Alejandro Kirk is having right now. And Bo Bichette might drive at 100 runs, and so on. Braden Fisher and Mason Fluharty coming up from the minor leagues and doing what they were doing. So I think the key for them really was, it's not that everything went perfectly. It's that when they did spring a leak, they had a guy who could patch it, and they did that over and over again.
Dan, we all followed along watching the games on Sportsnet, but can you tell us a story that maybe we didn't see on TV that really speaks to the kind of team that they were?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I will tell you, and I know some people will go, nah, he's just saying this. Without question, the closest group that I've ever been around, any team. Whether it was Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Kevin Gausman, or whether it was Miles Straw, Braden Fisher, Tyler Heineman, anybody on the team, they all liked each other. Like sometimes I'd walk into the clubhouse or get on the bus traveling with the team on the road, or look in the dugout during batting practice, and I'd say, I've never seen those two guys talk before. And they were talking like they were brothers, like they were best friends. And it just went on and on and on. And I give the front office and John Schneider and the coaches and the veteran players of the Blue Jays a tremendous amount of credit for creating that kind of culture, that kind of environment. I'll tell you one very quick story. Somebody got traded over to the Blue Jays. I can't remember who it was last year. They made a few trades. And I went up to George Springer the next day and I said, do you go out of your way, George? Do you make a point of welcoming a new guy to the team, whether you've known him before or you haven't? And he goes, absolutely. He goes, that's my job. And not everybody does that. Not everybody recognizes the value in that and that it's part of their job. But I think the Springers and Gausmans, Chris Bassett from last year as well, Guerrero and others, the leadership group on that team was really special, and I hope they can recreate it this year.
That's a great story because you often hear that cliche, though, we're the closest team, we all love each other, but that's not always true. Sometimes they're just saying that, so I do appreciate that. For the players, obviously, Dan, the regular season is very different than the playoffs. The stakes are higher, brighter lights, more pressure. Do you feel that the same as a broadcaster going from September baseball to October baseball?
I wouldn't say more pressure, but everything else I would agree with. So during my time doing baseball with ESPN, I had been very fortunate to do a lot of playoffs, 12 World Series on the radio. So I had done the World Series before, but I had never done the World Series on TV, and I had never done it for my hometown team. So those are two different things. And I would say the adrenaline was through the roof for all of us covering the games as well. I don't know how the players did it. I was exhausted the 18-inning game was a whole other story.
Yes.
But I was exhausted but exhilarated all at the same time. You can imagine how many people I heard from who maybe I hadn't heard from in years and years and years, who all of a sudden were Blue Jays fans. My sister, before September of last year, might never have watched a baseball game in her life, and I'm not exaggerating. And by October, I was getting texts at 2 p.m. saying, who's pitching tonight and what time is first pitch? I can't wait. So, I mean, one of the things that always means a lot to us is how many fans this team has. We totally get the St. John's to Victoria and everything in between aspect of this. We love it. The vast majority of us on our crew are Canadian, myself included. So it resonates with us a great deal. So I would say it was just excitement and adrenaline. You know, can they beat the Yankees? And then Game 7 against Seattle, the home run by Springer. They lose Game 3 to the Dodgers, then go win 4 and 5 in LA, come home up 3-2. Unfortunately, couldn't finish it off. But yeah, every single day was unbelievably fun.
That's great. So your sister never watched you once on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball?
No, never. Like, I remember a few years ago where she said, Danny, how many games do you do? And I said, well, there's 162 in a season. And I hadn't even finished the sentence. And she spit out 162. I thought they only played on weekends. And I said, no, they don't only play on weekends. Your brother's a little busier than you think he is. So.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Dan, I am a huge baseball fan. It's my favorite sport. I love the game. Could listen to anyone, obviously yourself included. Love the game. That moment in Game 7 when they brought in the outfielder for defensive purposes and he makes that catch. I keep telling my son, that is unbelievable. That's even beyond movie world, that they can put a guy in center field for defensive purposes. And he made probably the catch of the year. That catch was amazing in a regular season game. Yeah. Can you put me back there? Were you ready to call Clement's walk-off? You must have thought that's going to be a hit.
Yeah, it's funny because there were, I can't remember the specifics, but there were a couple of at-bats in Game 6 where the Blue Jays could have walked it off if somebody had hit a home run. And then right before that, Ernie Clement at bat that you're referring to, Dalton Varsho could have walked it off, but hit the ground ball to second. So there were 3 or 4 other at-bats before that where potentially the next pitch could have ended the World Series with the Blue Jays victorious. But the only moment where I, in my head, thought, this is it, it's happening right here, was when that ball was in the air. I thought he hit it well enough to get it off the wall. And I don't know what I was saying while the ball was in the air, but inside my head, I'm thinking, you better figure out something fast, buddy, because it's going to be over in about a second. So, and then, of course, Andy Pages runs over Kike Hernandez. I don't know if I've ever seen an outfielder run over a teammate like that, never mind in Game 7, 9th inning World Series, all that. But, you know, I give Pages all the credit in the world. And that's why sometimes I take exception with the Blue Jays folded, the Blue Jays choked. Like, none of that is true. No. They played their tails off. They represented their organization, their city, their country incredibly well. They took a historically good team to the 9th inning of Game 7. Yeah, they were up 3-2 and they didn't win it. But I think sometimes people forget the other guys are trying too. And Yamamoto was incredible, went into like superhero mode. And 3 Dodgers hit home runs. It's not just the pitchers who throw the pitch, the hitters have to hit them out too. So I thought it was 2 great teams in an absolutely magnificent, compelling World Series. But yeah, one of the moments that I'll remember the most was when that ball was in the air off the bat of Ernie Clement.
Yeah. Dan, I think you called that loss the ultimate heartbreak after getting that close and then falling short. How long does that linger for a team and even for a guy like you as the broadcaster?
For a guy like me, not long, honestly. And if my wife walks into the room, she can bear this out. I would say so that was Saturday. Sunday, we did nothing. Like, I think like a wave of exhaustion hit me on Sunday. I think we just hung out at home and walked the dog a few times. That's it. And then I left for basketball Wednesday. I only had 3 days until I was going into college basketball. Wow. So part of it was out of necessity where I said my brain and my body need Sunday off. But I've got Kansas and North Carolina coming up in a few days, and I need to figure out who's on those teams. So Because of that, I turned the page pretty quickly. And I think it's also, what I just said in my previous answer about they gave everything they had. And I choose to look at it as an incredible season. American League champions. I know they didn't get ultimately what they were so close to getting, but I think the season should be celebrated. And probably by Monday or Tuesday, like 3 days after, that's where I was in the mindset that I'm in right now. Now, every now and again, something would pop up on social media on my feed that I would see, and it would be the IKF, did he get to home plate in time, or Hoffman's pitch that was hit out. Like you can't crawl into a cave. So I got reminders of it. But I pretty much felt 2-3 days later like I feel now. For the players, I think they move past it pretty quickly as well. Players sometimes have the ability to turn the page much better than fans do, to be honest with you, because I think they're conditioned to do so. It's the life they lead. The one guy I think of is Jeff Hoffman, who I feel terrible for because he was phenomenal in the playoffs until the 9th inning of Game 7.
Right.
Before that, I think it's 11 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 16 strikeouts. He saved, he got the last 3 outs in Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. He was great. So I hope, and from everything I know, from speaking with him and reading other interviews that he's given, he has turned the page. He is ready to go. And you just hope it stays that way. 9th inning guys, boy, the spotlight is bright, whether it's good or bad. And I just hope he's been able to put it behind him, and I think he has been.
All right, I want to talk about your partner, Buck Martinez. You and Buck spent many years in the booth beside each other, starting at TSN in 1995, then again with Sportsnet. But this year is going to look a little bit different with Buck's retirement. Maybe if you could speak to that relationship between you and Buck and of course, the inaugural inductee to the new Jays Hall of Excellence.
Yeah, I was one of the biggest breaks I've ever gotten in my career is that Buck Martinez was my partner, both at the beginning and then the last 10 years before he retired. So, as you guys know from watching him, he's the best. He resonates with people, unlike just about any other announcer I've ever met, to be honest with you. People get him and he gets people and it's a connection like everybody feels, he's part of the family. So I'll tell you a quick story. This is back in 1995. I was a kid. I had done 1 inning of a spring training game on radio when I was down in Florida doing some pre and post game show and my talk show. And Tom Cheek turned around and said, "Danny, you want to call an inning?" And that's the only inning I had ever done in my life before the audition with Buck in 1995. I didn't get the job initially. They called me back about 3 months later and said, "You still interested?" So I don't know what happened in the interim and who choice A, B, and C were, but I'm happy that it didn't wind up with them. And, Buck and I started doing some spring training games. And after maybe our second game, we probably went out for dinner with our producer after the game. And he said to me, he goes, "Danny, if we can make this sound like 2 guys sitting at a bar having a beer, we're doing okay." And I say that in my head seconds before we go on air every single time. It's a baseball game. There's a lot of really serious stuff going on in the world. Everybody who's watching this game tonight has an option to be doing something else. So let's just talk baseball and see where it goes. My face isn't buried in my notes. I don't have an agenda about what I want to get on the air. I want to watch the game and call it to the best of my ability and hopefully keep people informed and a little bit entertained. And I owe a lot of that to Buck.
It's a great story. He always fascinates me because he did it all. He was a player, a manager, and he did play-by-play. I think he's the only person that ever came from that. Is that right?
To my knowledge, yeah. So he started off doing color when I was there with him, but then he became the manager. I went to ESPN. He came back some years later. I hadn't come back yet. And they asked him, Pat Tabler was what had been entrenched then as the color commentator. And they asked Buck if he wanted to do play-by-play. And he said, sure. So he did play-by-play kind of until I came back a few years later. So yeah, player, manager, play-by-play, color. That's a pretty good quartet. I don't know anybody else who's done all of that.
That's a great point. You did mention there's lots going on in the world, and that's the beautiful thing about baseball. When I tune into a game, it kind of makes you not think about the other things going on in the world. But that World Series and that playoff run did happen at the time when the trade war just started. Lots of talk from the president about 51st state. How much did you hear that or feel that as the Jays made this run?
It was more earlier in the season. I remember the Blue Jays went to both the Mets and the Yankees earlier. And this is when the tariff stuff had started and they booed the national anthem. That's all gone. I don't it probably happened a little bit during the World Series. I don't remember, to be honest with you. But some of that is just sometimes, it's the the national pastime of the United States. And some people, God bless them, will always be offended if a Canadian team, which is made up of American and Dominican and Venezuelan and Puerto Rican players, will try to win the game from their team, which is made up of American and Dominican and Puerto Rican and Venezuelan players. So among others, obviously, and then the odd Canadian here and there. So, yeah, it happens once in a while. I haven't thought about it much since, but I remember it being worse in April, to be honest with you, when the tariff stuff started. I think it died down, and maybe there was a little bit in the World Series. But, it's what can you do? Real life creeps into everything sometimes, and everything can be divisive and politicized. And at the end of the day, when the umpire points at the pitcher and says, play ball, it's my job to call a game, and I try to keep it to that.
Absolutely. This has been a great conversation. Just a couple more questions, Dan. We really appreciate it. I know, again, being a big baseball fan, a lot of people think, okay, the Jays, we're almost there. We'll just get back to the World Series and we'll do it again. But as you know, getting back to the World Series might be the hardest of all the pro sports to get back. Can you speak to that? It's not easy, is it?
No, I think baseball, just by the nature of the way it is as a sport, is more unpredictable than football, basketball, hockey. You can see a guy hit 310 with 28 homers, and the next year he hits 260 with 13 homers. Like guys in basketball don't go from 26 points a game to 13 points a game. They don't go from 45% from three to 29% from three. You miss the ball by a quarter of an inch, and that turns a line drive into a pop-up. So I think the sport lends itself to more chaos, for lack of a better term. And also, you've got to win a lot of rounds, a lot of games now in the postseason. It really is a battle of attrition in October. Do you have enough arms to get through? So, plus here's another. Look at how narrow the margin was for the Dodgers over the Blue Jays. Look at how narrow the margin was for the Blue Jays over the Mariners. Now go back a previous series, and the Mariners, I think they were playing the Tigers in a best of 5, and Game 5 went 15 innings.
Yes, it did.
And the Tigers had trouble beating the Guardians in the first round. It was paper thin all the way through the American League, all the way through to the end of the World Series. So it's just the nature of the sport. The other thing is, in hockey, you want McDavid on the ice on the power play, you put him on the ice. In basketball, you want Wemby to be out there when it matters the most, you put him out there. Your quarterback is your quarterback. In football, you don't control who's coming up next in baseball. They've got an order. And, no one player in baseball can be as influential or instrumental in a team's success, in my mind, as any one player in some of the other sports. And maybe I should walk that back because of what Yamamoto did last year, but that's like once in a decade, once in a generation kind of stuff. So, but it is going to be hard to get back. The division is always the best in baseball, and it's even better than it normally is this year. And I know the Blue Jays aren't taking anything for granted, nor should they.
Yeah. So what do you say to fans who say, Dan, are they going to get back to the playoffs?
I think they've got a really good team, and I think they've got an outstanding chance to win the division, to compete for a division title. And once you get in, anything can happen. And that's how I honestly feel. They could finish first with 96 wins. They could finish fourth with 90 wins. They have to play these teams in their division more than the other. It's a tougher division. It's not a balanced schedule. It's less unbalanced than it used to be, but it is not a balanced schedule. Everything is tougher for the teams in the East, and you could have a really good year and still miss out on the playoffs this year because a wild card team in the Central or West is fattening up on some of the weaker teams. So I think they're good enough to get by that. But listen, we've seen really good teams have great years and then win 20 fewer games the next year. So I don't think that's going to happen to them. I think they are good and deep and, well insulated against a lot of issues that could crop up, but you never know with baseball.
Last one for you, Dan. Family's important to all of us, but you're certainly in a unique situation with your son, Ben, calling Jays games on radio. How cool is that?
It's very fun. He's known since he was about 12 or 13, he wanted to get into the business. He knew when he was about 15, he wanted to go to Syracuse, got into Syracuse, did that during the COVID years too. So that kind of held him back a little bit. But I remember kind of in his junior year, starting to listen to him. And I know I'm his dad, but I would say to my wife, he's pretty good, right? Like I'm not just being dad here. And then he did the Cape Cod League, did the Padres A-ball team in the Midwest League, the Fort Wayne Tin Caps for a year, and then started doing stuff in Toronto. And it's great. What I'm most proud of is how he handles himself. He's very respectful. I asked some of the veteran players, like guys I've known for a few years, quietly, like a month or so into the season. Maybe this was 2 years ago, a month or so into the season. I said, "How's he doing?" And they were like, "Don't worry, Dad. He's doing okay. Like, it's fine. Don't worry." And but I'm proud of him. I think he's doing great. Quite frankly, I think he kicked my butt a few times in October last year. So with some of the calls, maybe it's being 30 some years younger than me, but he can get up to 10 a little bit easier than I can get up to 10 sometimes. So, but I'm very proud of him, and it is very cool. We probably exchange 100+ texts every day because we're living the same life. We're doing the same thing. So did you see this article? Did you see this note? That sort of thing. So, as a dad, when one of your grown children wants, still tolerates you being in their lives as much as I'm in his, it's really special.
All right. Great. Very cool. 5:30 pregame show tomorrow night on Sportsnet, another season. Dan, thanks for this and have a great season.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
I thought you were going to reach through the camera when Dan brought up the Tigers.
I know. I didn't want to take the focus away from Dan. He's a busy guy too, but man, that stung. And just bringing back the memory of that 15-inning Tigers game for people who know I'm a huge Tigers fan, and I still sting it for that. But it's opening day for our team tonight.
That's right. Who are you playing?
San Diego Padres.
Nice.
4 o'clock Eastern, actually. First pitch, Tarek Skubal. But you know what? Dan is phenomenal broadcaster. I watched him for years on Sunday Night Baseball before he went back to becoming the Jays broadcaster. He's just such a pro, understands the game, and what he said about baseball is so true. And our guests always say it better than I could ever say it, because that's the thing about baseball. Your best player only hits once every 9 times. You can't just put him in. You can't give the ball to like you can in basketball to Michael Jordan all day. So your best batter hits once every 9 times. And until last year when they brought in Yamamoto on 0 days rest, you would never bring Tarek Skubal in when he pitched the day before. It's crazy.
Yep.
So I don't know what magical thing they had going on that day. Like, or if there's some doctor who x-rayed his arm and said, there's something like that. Like, that could be career ending. That's risky, right? And then these guys are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Crazy.
But great conversation. I wish the Jays the best, so we can have another fun October. Maybe we'll meet in the playoffs this year.
I remember being down here, in the fall and watching games. And
absolutely,
chirping each other was great.
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right, pregame show 5:30 tomorrow night on Sportsnet. First pitch at Rogers Center just after 7 o'clock. Closer look at villagemedia.ca is how you can reach us. For Zach Trunzo, executive producer of this evening's program, and Michael Friscoletti, our editor-in-chief, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.